Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm gonna continue the story What If Deku Ate the Devil Fruit Part 4. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
One for all. 100%. For Izuku, this was the first time he had used 100% layered all over his body for a longer time. There were times when he used 100%, but they were mostly just for one attack. When he was at 100%, he had too much tunnel vision and couldn't use his movement technique well because he would either trip over his feet or go too far. He didn't need that right now, though. He only knew that to beat Nomu, he needed power. Nomu hit Izuku with a hammer, but Izuku pushed it away with a roar and then used all his strength to kick Nomu in the groin. "That's dirty, and a hero shouldn't be doing that," Shigaraki teased, but he had his legs crossed when he saw it. To everyone's surprise, the Nomu moaned in pain and fell backward, even though it had a trait that let it absorb shock. Being genetically modified and having quirks pushed into it didn't change the fact that taking damage from its crotch was still pretty painful, especially since Izuku's full power kick would have separated anyone's balls. Still, the Nomu's super regeneration fixed any damage that had been done, and it growled angrily at Izuku. Katsuki yelled, "Fucking move, Deku!" as he stood up and pushed Izuku to the side. He then pointed his other gauntlet at Nomu and pulled the trigger. The Nomu was thrown back a long way by another big explosion that came from Katsuki's gauntlet. The Nomu screamed in pain as his regeneration began again. As explosions bounced off Katsuki's hands again, he yelled, "Why the hell won't this mother die?" Izuku quickly grabbed him by the shoulders and stopped him as he was about to charge forward. "We need to plan this out," said Izuku. "That thing not only tanked both of your grenade shots from your bracers but also broke out of Todoroki's ice and my punches. I can tank back, but if one of you guys get hit, you're dead. Even Kirishima couldn't tank through it." "I can handle this," Katsuki said with a frown, but she didn't charge forward. "Plus, we don't have a choice, do we?" "That thing was created to beat All Might," said Shoto as he frozen Eijiru's arm to lessen swelling and ease the pain. "It means we can't just charge in without a plan. We should focus on delaying it until the pro heroes come. According to them, one of ours managed to escape to UA. The more time we buy, the better the chance of survival for everyone. Once All Might is here, he'll destroy that monster easily." Izuku took a deep breath and thought, "But Sensei has gotten weaker. I have no doubt that he'll beat him, but at what cost? It also blocked my kick at 100%. We need to kill this right now, or at least make him weak enough to fall." Izuku's mind started to go over different ideas as he tried to come up with something. When he thought about how the Nomu moved, he remembered how strong, durable, and fast it was. The only time it didn't do anything was when Izuku threw him up in the air. Izuku came up with a plan all of a sudden that would buy them as much time as possible and might help them beat the Nomu. "Bakugo, Todoroki, I have a plan. I need you two to send the Nomu up into the air. Once that's done, I can make stay in the air for a while, buying as much time needed. However, with both of us occupied, you'll have to be careful of the two other villains. The one with hands seems to be able to disintegrate anything he touches, though he may need to prolong contact or something else. You already know the other one." The other two people nodded. "Okay," Shoto said. "It didn't do anything but growl." Hey, you think you're in a safe zone to talk?" mocked Shigaraki as he bent down. "You damn mini-bosses are annoying me, taking up my time and energy. If this was a speed run, you'd be the place where gamers would rage on." There were only a few seconds before Nomu charged at the three boys again. Izuku told them, "I'll tank. You two find a chance." It didn't take long for Izuku to bend his knees and ankle and dash forward with his right arm raised. The Nomu raised his right arm as well, and as they got closer, their fists hit each other. As a result, there was a shock wave that pushed everyone away from the epicenter. Oi, did you already forget?" Shigaraki teased as he backflipped gracefully to land on his feet. "He has shock absorption, so all those punches won't hurt him." "It's not nullification like mine," Izuku said with a grin as he raised his fists again. "That is, while I can take as many hits as I want, this one has limits." When Nomu raised his fist, Shigaraki's eyes got narrow. The bad guys and the good guys' fists hit each other, getting faster and faster until their hands were just a blur. "Come on, North Carolina," yelled Izuku in his head as he focused on offense. Having no other choice, he had to hope that his rubber body would keep blocking all of the Nomu's hits while he did the same. They couldn't even get close to them because of the wind that the fight made. Izuku felt pain shooting through his arms all of a sudden. "What the heck, my arms and body can't handle one for all at full strength," Izuku thought. "I thought my nullification of blunt blows would have been enough to handle it. Then again, I've never used 100% continuously like this before." Little by little, Izuku could feel himself being pushed back as Nomu's barrage of punches began to stop him. "Ha ha ha, watch out hero, you're starting to slow down," said Shigaraki. "If you lose, then you and all your friends will die." Hearing that made Izuku work even harder, and he caught up to Nomu's speed. Izuku thought to himself as he took a punch to the face, "Keep calm. There will be a chance soon. The key point will be somewhere in this flow." He then saw it. He is going to get another right punch in the face. Izuku ducked under it right away and quickly wrapped his hands around the arm. Then he twisted his body and started to use the arm as a lever to throw Nomu into the air. He screamed the first words that came to mind to call for Katsuki as he did this. He hadn't used that name in a long time. Kachan. And Katsuki knew right away what Izuku wanted him to do as soon as he heard his old name. He jumped into the air while Izuku was still throwing Nomu. Katsuki was already under the Nomu when Izuku threw something at him. He did this by instinctively figuring out the path of the throw. He put both hands right on top of the Nomu's chest. Katsuki screamed, "DDDDIE," as he fired his biggest and strongest blast. The Nomu was thrown even higher into the air, right under the dome roof's middle part. Shoto fired several ice pillars right away to hit the Nomu even harder. HMPH, as if that would be enough, Shigaraki laughed. But Izuku wasn't done yet. He ran forward, caught Katsuki, and quickly threw him to Shoto. Katsuki screamed in pain, and both of his hands started to shake. Izuku stood still and then suddenly sucked in all the air he could, making himself bigger like a balloon. So he began to twist his body around and around, doing this for 8 times. After quickly putting himself in place, he let out all the air that had been building up inside him and threw himself into the air while spinning. He was spinning and flying toward the Nomu as soon as he was done blowing out all the air in his body. Shigaraki told Kurogiri, "Stoop him." Kurogiri said, "Yes," and let his mist move around his body. Izuku was standing in front of a portal that Kurogiri planned to use to catch him. Outside of USJ, another portal was being built that would take Izuku to a different place. If he timed it right, he could cut the portal just as Izuku's top half came in and split the boy in half. But he doesn't think it would work because Izuku was moving too fast for his portal to close on him. As Izuku was about to enter the black portal from the mist villain, he had no way to stop. Ka-Pyu. Ka-Pyu. 2 very big words were thrown at Kurogiri and Shigaraki, but they were able to avoid them. Suddenly, 2 steel nets were thrown from the other side and caught the 2 bad guys. Unfortunately for Kurogiri, he lost focus on his portal, which let Izuku go right through it. "Don't forget about us," Monoma said with a smile as she high-fived Manga. "We're here to help," Itsuka said, pulling everyone else in with her. He growled, "TCH, the mobs just keep coming," as he grabbed the net and broke it apart, freeing himself and Kurogiri. Izuku fixed his attention on One for All again as he got closer to Nomu, ignoring the pain in his arms. Izuku was already pulling his fist back again as soon as he was 5 meters away from the Nomu. Patricia. Storm Smash. Nomu was hit by a line of fists, each one with 100% of One for All power behind it. Izuku kept throwing punches at the Nomu while he was in the air, and the Nomu couldn't even punch back at Izuku because his arms were outstretched. Neither of them was moving quickly as they climbed to the roof of USJ. Ochako yelled, "Go!" Deku. Tetsu yelled, "Beat his ass!" Itsuka felt something wet hit her face as Izuku's classmates cheered for him. She quickly put her hand on it to find out what had hit her. When she saw that it was blood, her face turned pale. She quickly turned her attention back to Izuku's arms and said she thought she saw red streaks. With a shaking voice, Itsuka asked, "Momo, can you focus on Izuku's arms?" When Momo looked at her, She saw Itsuka's face get hit with another drop of blood. She turned pale right away and turned to face Izuku, making binoculars to focus on Izuku's arms. When she saw Izuku's arms start to bleed, she gasped. He was still punching, though. The other students would soon also notice. But Izuku didn't care. No matter how much his arms and hands hurt and how much blood was pouring out of them, it didn't matter. If he gave up now, Nomu and the other bad guys would probably be able to kill other people. He wasn't going to let it happen no matter what the chance was, as long as he could do something. Just one thing was important now. Running away with his enemy until they weren't a threat to his friends or other children. When Nomu's back finally hit the ceiling of the USJ dome, Izuku's fists seemed to get faster and stronger. He won't be able to keep going for much longer, Shigaraki laughed as he looked up and saw blood falling from the sky. Sooner or later, he'll have to fall. Shigaraki, I'm sorry to ruin your fun, but we're surrounded, Kurogiri said. Shigaraki pouted and said, ruin my fun, then let's. All of them heard a loud creaking sound all of a sudden. When they all looked up again, they saw that the Nomu's body was being drilled into the ceiling. Cracks were appearing all over the ceiling around the body. Shigaraki yelled, "No, that's not possible." Momo and Itsuka, who never took their eyes off of Izuku, yelled his name from the bottom of their hearts. Izuku. As Izuku suddenly spun around and stretched out his leg to kick the Nomu, he yelled, "I won't let you hurt anyone anymore." The attack not only broke through the ceiling, but it also launched Nomu into the sky, where she vanished in an instant. There was a whisper from the stairs. He did it. Okay. Midoriya, Hanta and the others cheered. Kurogiri, we need to kill him now. Shigaraki told him, All Might is a threat, but one that's weakening. This kid is a threat that'll become an even bigger one. He's using hacks. Kurogiri quickly warped both of them up into the air and said, Roger, it was too late for the students to do anything, and they didn't know where they went until. Toru yelled, up there, together with Shigaraki. Kurogiri had warped right next to Izuku. Shigaraki planned to use his quirk to kill Izuku. Itsuka yelled, Momo, in fear. Both girls had already seen that Izuku hadn't moved since his last attack, as if he were lying still. She quickly made a cannonball for Itsuka to throw and said, already on it. Itsuka had already made her hands bigger and quickly aimed and threw it right at Shigaraki. It was going to hit Izuku, even if it missed. It hurt her to throw something at him, but at least it would get him to safety. Sadly, Kurogiri had said that something like this would happen, so he surrounded them with a black mist. The bullet from the cannon went through the portal and out the other side, landing in the landslide zone. Shigaraki said, game over, as he was almost able to grab Izuku's neck directly. All of a sudden, a gust of wind went right through them, and Izuku was no longer visible. Everything is fine now. Why? Because I am here. All Might showed up and saw Izuku throw the Nomu into the air. He also saw that Izuku wasn't doing anything to stop his fall. He jumped off quickly and caught Izuku before Shigaraki could do anything. Before that, he took care of all the bad guys between UA helped Jiroda and the others before going to USJ, and USJ. It had only taken him 10 seconds. He whined, shit, it's not fair. Scared, Kurogiri told Shigaraki, I think it's time for us to get away. The only thing Shigaraki could do was whine about the loss and nod as Kurogiri sped them to safety. Shigaraki swore as they ran off, we may have failed this time, but next time we will definitely kill you, All Might. HMPH, so they chose to run away, All Might said with a frown as he looked down at the person he was holding. Izuku only said, hee, you came, with a weak smile. As soon as All Might saw how badly Izuku was damaged, his heart almost broke. His arms and fists were badly hurt, but his muscles all over his body seemed to be twitching from too much work. It looks like young Midoriya can't handle the stress of one for all at full strength for a long time. All Might thought to himself as he carefully set him down on the ground, maybe the limit is much higher now because he has been planning to store things. Tetsu yelled, holy shit, as he and the others ran to All Might and saw the damage all over Izuku. She scolded Ibara, language, but her eyes were on all the wounds. Momo, Itsuka, and Ochako swarmed Izuku right away. The salves were kept in Itsuka's utility belt. Ochako held his arms up gently so she could rub the ointment on his arms. Momo snapped her chest window open a little wider so that she could make Izuku a lot of bandages. That's when they heard groaning sounds, which caught their attention. It was time for the bad guys that Eraserhead and Vlad had knocked out to wake up. The students were getting ready for another fight when All Might stepped up. All Might stepped forward and said, "I'll take care of this here, Zygotes. You students have done enough." The bad guys looked at All Might and then backed away out of fear. He wasn't smiling like he usually did. Instead, he had an angry look on his face. His juniors were hurt, the kids were probably scared, and his successor had pushed himself too far and hurt himself in the process. At the same time, the bad guys took gulps, and some of them tried to run away. All Might wasn't messing around, which was bad for them. There were no living people left. Of course, I'm using a metaphor. Shit, shit, shit shit. Shigaraki yelled as he left the portal from Kurogiri, back in their hideout at a bar. We were completely defeated. The underlings instantly routed. Our trump card, Nomu, didn't even get to fight All Might, thanks to some stupid brat who used hacks. The other kids were all strong enough to handle the others. Not to mention, there were 20 more students and another pro hero on the scene. To top it all off, when All Might came, he didn't even seem winded. The symbol of peace hasn't weakened at all. You were wrong, Sensei. No, I wasn't, said a voice from a TV that could only play sounds. Just simply too optimistic. A simple setback, said a voice that sounded like it was from someone more than 100 years old but was still alive. Indeed, we did underestimate them, said another person. Well, it's a good thing we used a throwaway name for the League of Villains. By the way, what happened to our joint project, Nomu? He was blown away, said Kurogiri. He was sent flying up into the skies. Despite knowing that I needed to look vertically, I could not find him, as I did not have the time to. I would need more precise coordinates. Not to mention that the angle of Nomu falling down is not certain to be straight back down. The second voice groaned, and after all, we did to match All Might in power. Now hold on, the first voice said. From what my pupil said, All Might did not fight him. Instead, you said a child fought him? And defeated Nomu? Did the child have some sort of quirk to disable Nomu? Something that pushed the Nomu away? To trick him? He fought the Nomu face to face. Shigaraki said. Not only that, he matched him strength to strength somehow. And as if that wasn't enough, he could extend his limbs and nullify Nomu's strength. After that, the Straw Hat bastard threw Nomu into the air, where another brat with explosives for a quirk blasted Nomu up into the air. He forced Nomu to fully regenerate his body twice. After that, the Straw Hat brat just kept punching Nomu into the ceiling before kicking him to who knows where. It's so not fair. You said with brute force? HMPH. Can't believe such a thing could happen. As if that wasn't enough, I almost got a critical hit on him that would have killed him if All Might hadn't intervened. Well, all is not lost, said the voice. This wasn't a futile exercise. It's time to gather the elite force. Take all the time you need to pick for the most efficient team. Remember, we cannot move freely, so that's why a symbol like you is necessary. Shigaraki Tamura, next time, show the world why you are to be feared. As soon as the teachers showed up to help, it was easy to catch the last few bad guys. Later, the police showed up and arrested all the bad guys while the students were being questioned. 13, Vlad, Eraserhead, Katsuki, Eiichiro, and Izuku were sent to the hospital right away, where Recovery Girl and other doctors were already there. All Might was with them to make sure they wouldn't be caught off guard on the way back. One funny moment was when a police officer with a cat head as a quirk perked his ears up. Hey, do you hear something? The police officer asked Naomasa Tsukaichi, who worked with him. Everyone slowly heard a whistling sound coming from the direction the police officer pointed. Naomasa turned his ear in that direction. After a few seconds, something crashed into the middle of USJ. The police and all the pro heroes who were on the scene quickly got ready to act because they thought there would be another attack. But when the crater's dust settled, it was clear that nothing was coming out. When the brave police officer and hero walked forward to see what was going on, they saw the Nomu lying flat on the ground and not moving. They quickly locked up the Nomu and took him away, even though he or she was being very cooperative and not reacting to anything. Back at UA, Katsuki Bakugo and Izuku Midoriya shared a room that was too small for both of them. Their hands and arms were bandaged. Katsuki had an extra splint on both arms because he had broken bones and torn muscles in his forearms by chaining so many strong explosions. He also had some first-degree burns on his hands. Both of Izuku's arms were in arm casts that went from his hands to his shoulders. This meant that he couldn't bend his elbows. All over his body were bandage wraps to cover up the small wounds. Recovery Girl hadn't used her ability on them because Vlad, 13, and Shota were in worse shape than they were, and she was giving her full attention to making sure they got better. Along with that, both boys needed some time to eat and rest before she did her weird thing to them. That's why there was a strange silence between them. Katsuki asked, "Hey," as he grabbed some grapes to eat because they were easy to hold. "What was that all about?" Izuku asked as he lifted his head from the plate of Recovery Girl made gummies. He stretched his neck and sat down to eat. "All that lightning around you, and on your eyes. Your spiky hair. Was that a second quirk you were fucking hiding?" Katsuki growled. "Were you holding back on me on that spar?" For some reason, Izuku shook his head and said, "I just recently learned about that part of my quirk. But I don't have it fully under control, as you can see from my arms." He waved his arms to emphasize this point. "What type of quirk lets you have a rubber body and massive strength?" asked Katsuki, narrowing his eyes. "In fact, when did you even get a fucking quirk, Deku? I know for a fact you were quirkless when you were 4. She said. "Well, I was a really late bloomer," and Izuku lied while turning away. "You're a shitty liar," said Katsuki. "You have no poker face whatsoever. Whatever, it doesn't matter what you do. I'm still going to be number 1. Don't let the fact that you managed to send that monster flying get to your head. I would have won without your help, and you needed my help to beat it." The fact that Katsuki wasn't trying to find out the truth made Izuku feel better. He tried to eat some gummies again, but it was hard for him to do so with just his mouth and tongue. Then he heard Katsuki bark his name again. When Izuku looked up, Katsuki had already picked a few grapes off the vine and was holding them out in front of him. "Eat some of this shit. Just stretch your neck over here and I'll pop them into your mouth," said Katsuki. Izuku agreed because he was glad it would make getting food easier. "This invasion had a purpose," Toshinori said, changing back to his skinny form while alone in a room with Nezu. "It was planned to kill me. The students said the Nomu could absorb shocks and heal itself quickly." "That's right," Sukachi said as he walked into the room. "The damage would have been worse without you pro-heroes." Toshinori looked at him. "You're wrong. By the time I arrived, it was already almost over." 13, Vlad, and Eraserhead did most of the work. The students themselves also fought bravely and gave it their all. And lastly, young Midoriya and Bakugo exerted themselves to the point of injuring themselves just to save others. These students experienced battle at such a young age and survived. I doubt any high school freshman has faced such terrors so early on. The villains have done a foolish thing today. Both Class 1A and 1B are strong. All of them will become strong heroes. Before he could start to question, Sukachi could only close his eyes and nod his head. 2 days later, Ochako, Momo, and Itsuka yelled, "Izuku, Deku!" It had been closed for a day, and Izuku and Katsuki were locked up all night before they were finally let go. After the USJ event, this was the first time the girls saw Izuku. Without warning, the 3 of them slammed into Izuku, making him fall back. Katsuki was smart to avoid the whole thing and keep walking without caring. Itsuka asked Izuku, "Are you okay?" and quickly pulled Izuku's arm up to look at it. "See, no harm done." Izuku laughed as he gently rubbed Ituska on the head. "I'm fine, Itsuka." When Momo saw the other arm, she asked, "What about the scars? If you want, I can order some scar repairing cream right away, and I promise it will work," she replied. "No, it's all right," Izuku said. "They'll fade in time, however. This will just remind me that I still have a long way to go. There are even more dangerous villains out there, and that I can't be content with my current strength. I'll follow the school's creed and go beyond my limits." "Be careful," Ochako said in a soft voice. "No one ever wants to see you get hurt like that again." In fact, seeing Izuku's body during the USJ had scared the 3 of them. Itsuka held her handmade Izuku doll close to her as she went to sleep, while Ochako and Momo slept in the same bed that night, glad to have each other to keep them from having nightmares. Tenya called out as he walked by. Let's keep walking. We can't be late to school. As Setsuna walked by, she thought, I wonder who will teach homeroom today. Both senseis are still hurt. Perhaps they died, Yui said. Tenya cut his arm in a robotic way and yelled, I doubt that would happen under Recovery Girl's watch. Itsuka gave Izuku one last hug before going into her own classroom, and then they quickly got to their own classes. When the doorbell rang, what was inside? Shota was wrapped in bandages from head to toe, and his arms were in casts. They had no idea how he was walking. Tenya asked in a loud voice, Teacher, are you okay? Shota said in a low voice, That's not the time to worry about me. The battle for you all still hasn't ended. I asked Katsuki, Battle? More bad guys? Mineta almost screamed. Shota told the students, UA Sports Festival is just around the corner. He did this to remind them that they were at school. Is it okay to have this kind of event right after bad guys attacked? Kyoka asked with a little worry. Mashirao asked, what if they attack us again during it? By showing that UA can proceed with this event without worry, it helps shows that our crisis management system is as solid. Not to mention, security will be strengthened by 5-fold than compared to last year. But that's nothing you all should be thinking about. What you should be focused on is that this event is a huge opportunity for you all. Back in the pre-Quirk era, the Olympics was something that garnered the attention and enthusiasm of everyone. However, with the reduction of scale and population due to the beginning of the Quirk era, that's now a thing of the past. Now, in Japan, the UA Sports Festival has completely replaced it. Mineta told Momo about his worries, but Momo helped him understand that this event was not only for fun, but also for scouting. They talked a little about the path some of them were going to take, but the message was clear. This event was too important to put off, and they would only get 3 chances to do it during their time at UA. No one who wanted to be a hero could have missed that event. Lunchtime, this was time for everyone to talk about their chances at the sports festival. Ojiro-kun, I'm getting so nervous now. I need to stand out in the sports festival, Toru told me. Mashirao replied with a small drop of sweat, yeah, you'll have to work really hard. At the time, Aoyama was bragging about how naturally he stood out and how he would get all the attention. Shoji, Kyoka, Momo, Tenya, and Izuku were all around Denki, who sighed. Man, Shoji, you're so lucky. You'll definitely stand out because of your strength. It doesn't matter if I can't show how useful I am, Shoji replied. Kaminari, I don't think you'll have any trouble standing out, Kyoka joked as she thought of Denki's funny face when he trips and hurts himself. Seems like everyone's really into this, Izuku said with a smile as Denki made noises to complain about Kyoka's teasing. Then again, I can't say I'm not excited myself. Indeed, said Tenya, we all enrolled here to be heroes, so of course we would be fired up. Tenya got excited in a very different way by shaking his hands and moving his body around. I agree, Momo said. This is our chance to make it big, to prove ourselves what we can do. Iida, Momo, Deku, a voice from behind them all said, making them turn around and see Ochako with a serious face, a pink aura going all over her body, and a bloodthirsty grin. Let's do our best at the sports festival. Everyone was shocked by the sudden change in mood and behavior. Mina spoke up to say that Ochako was acting very differently from how her name makes her sound. Suyu hit Mineta in the face with her tongue just as she was about to say why. Ochako yelled, I'm going to do my best, and raised her arms. Still, her attitude was contagious, and Izuku and the others raised their arms to show they agreed. Along with Itsuka, Yui, and Setsuna, they quickly made their way to the cafeteria. Soon, they were telling each other why they wanted to be heroes. They were shocked when they found out that Ochako had done it for the money, but she later realized she wasn't really doing it for herself. She was doing it to make things easier for her parents. It wasn't going so well for her parents' construction company, and Ochako wanted to help because her quirk could help the business. She was shocked that her parents told her to follow her own dreams instead. Her parents deserved an easy life, so she did everything she could to give them that. People who hung out with Izuku and the others before she went to the US knew the story because she told it to them. On the other hand, Momo had an extra surprise for Ochako. Her parents were thinking about making one of the institutions bigger, and Momo may have suggested that they use the Uraraka Construction Company in a sneaky way to help her friend. All at once. There you are, young Midoriya. All Might came out of nowhere from around a corner, shocking everyone. Still, they weren't used to the idea that the main character was teaching here. Would you like to have lunch with me? All Might asked in a shy voice. He's like a maiden, Ochako laughed, and Setsuna joined her in her laughter. Before telling his classmates to go ahead without him, Izuku looked at them. It was clear that All Might wanted to talk to him about something important. There was a private room in the teacher's lounge where they went. The others went to the cafeteria. Ochako asked with a hint of worry, "Wonder what's going on with Deku?" "Perhaps it's about the USJ incident," said Tenya. "He did manage to defeat that monster, though sustaining serious injury. Perhaps All Might felt like he needed to give him counseling and advice." "Yay, Midoriya packs a serious punch," Setsuna agreed. "I mean, I know Itsuka's punches can hurt, but I'm not sure if they can compare to his." "I am curious how that part came to be," thought Itsuka. "He never showed that back when we were kids." "Perhaps it was something that came later in life or given to him," Yui said. Setsuna laughed and said, "Ha, giving quirks? That's funny." The incredible amount of power that Izuku can deliver may have interested All Might, and maybe has even taken a liking to him, Momo thought. Ochako smiled and put her fist in her palm. Yeah, that could be it. But what they hadn't seen was Shoto listening in on their conversation. He seemed pretty interested in what they were saying. Toshinori, who had been swollen, said, "Here, have some tea. And this bento box. I still can't really eat too much solid food." When Izuku opened the bento box, he saw tasty food that hadn't been touched in a long time. It did, however, smell, look, and taste very familiar to him. It looked like he had eaten this before. Izuku turned his head to look at Toshinori and asked, "Is this my mom's cooking?" The room became very hot all of a sudden, and Toshinori took a deep breath and pulled on his collar. "Yes, I went to your mom in my real form and told her about what happened at USJ and why you wouldn't be coming home for the night. She was crying, and she insisted I bring you a home-cooked meal, which you ate yesterday with young Bakugo. She then made me one and told me I should eat more. It's delicious, and I'd love to eat more, but my stomach, or rather lack of a stomach, makes that hard to do so." Izuku looked down again and saw that his mom had put the bento together in a very odd way. He thought the dried seaweed was shaped like a heart and could see a few carrots that looked like animals. It looked like it had been half-eaten, so he couldn't be sure. Izuku ate his food with gusto, ignoring the thought that his mother and his favorite hero might be together because he knew his mind couldn't handle it. "So how long can you keep your form now?" Izuku asked, interested and a little worried about his teacher. "Almost a year has passed since I gave you the torch," Toshinori said as he leaned back in his chair and sipped his tea again. "My time has definitely decreased since then. Not to mention that I did strain myself during the USJ incident, as I had already reached my limit, to come to your aid. Now, my time limit is about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 if I'm pushing it." In a whisper, Izuku said again, 1.5. As Toshinori stood up and walked to the window, he looked out into the peaceful town far away and said, "To be honest, I don't have much time left as the symbol of peace. And out there, people who have been planning to do bad things have started to realize that and have started to move." "Those like All for One?" Izuku asked, his eyes getting narrow. Izuku only had a general idea of who that bad guy was. His knowledge was bound to be present after the strange event when he took over One for All. Toshinori told him some things about him because his predecessor had talked about All for One. "Indeed," Toshinori said, clutching his wound where All for One had done a terrible thing. "It's very likely that the plan to invade USJ and the Nomu was concocted from him. He has the power to take and give quirks to others, though he mainly took what he deemed useful for himself only. The one called Shigaraki is most likely acting as his envoy or something similar to that. I had hoped he perished from the injuries I gave him, but it seems like he is still alive." Toshinori turned around, facing Izuku again, his fist tightened. "I gave you this power because you are the most worthy successor for One for All. I want you to succeed me. The sacred torch that has been passed down from one torchbearer to another, each stockpiling its power for the next generation so the bearer can answer the call for help, to protect those in need. You yourself once told me you wanted to become the greatest hero, like me. The UA Festival is an event that pro-heroes. No, the whole country will be watching closely. That is why I brought you here to talk about. As Toshinori passionately told Izuku something important, he began to feel chills go through him. It looked like the energy and light in his eyes came from One for All. As the next fledgling symbol of peace, of the next generation of heroes, I want you to tell them all a message. Declare to them all that I am here. Izuku got chills all the way down to his toes when he heard this word. Toshinori gave him a job that was so hard that he thought he might not be able to breathe. Still, the fact that his teacher thought he could do it made him happy. Toshinori asked, "Are you sure you know how the UA Sports Festival works?" Izuku nodded and began to talk about how the 3 grades were split up and the classes were merged, among other things. As Toshinori put it, "That's right, that is, now is your chance to introduce yourself." Izuku responded with a shocked, "Huh," which made Toshinori fall backwards off the couch. "Sorry, what you're saying is right," Izuku said before he started muttering again. "But I'm still trying to have that earlier message sink in. Not to mention you're already teaching me. And what about All for One? Would he notice me and realize that you passed your quirk to me and—" When Toshinori coughed up blood again, he yelled, "Geez, nobody is better at talking nonsense than you." He thought the other person was trying to stop muttering like that. Izuku said, "I'm sorry, one more time. Listen Midoriya, don't worry about All for One. I doubt he'll be able to swoop in anytime soon from our last battle. But putting that aside, listen to me well. There is a difference between those who aim for the top and those who don't. It may feel and look small, but those slight differences make the biggest waves in society. I won't force you if you feel uncomfortable, but I ask you that you don't forget how you felt back at the seaside beach," Toshinori said. Izuku closed his eyes and thought about what Toshinori had before they began training. Toshinori had put a lot of hard work and training into him, as well as other people like Rikai and Gran Torino. Toshinori didn't need to worry because he could see light coming from Izuku's eyes. Afterwards, when Ochako opened the door, there was a crowd right outside their door. The students in 1A were getting ready to leave. Ochako was shocked and asked, "What the heck?" Mineta yelled, "They're blocking the exit, what are they here for?" "They're scoping out the competition, small fry," said Katsuki as he headed toward the crowd. "We're one of 2 classes that made it out of the villains' attacks, and also the ones who did the most driving off the villains. They're checking us out before the UA Sports Day." When the crowd yelled at Katsuki, Mineta cried. The crowd seemed to take a step back when she glared at them. "It's pointless to do something like that," said Katsuki. "Out of my fucking way, extras." Tenya yelled, "Don't call people you don't know extras right away," as he chopped the air with his arms. "Ma, they're all curious," Shinso said as he pushed himself forward. "There are quite a few students who are in the general course or other courses simply because they didn't make it to the hero course. Though I'm partially in the hero course, I'm still just a reserve student and mainly a part of the general course. This sports festival is a big chance for everyone who wants to become a hero to be reviewed and transferred to the hero course. Of course, the reverse can also happen. No position is safe here, after all. I might even be cut off if I don't give a good showing. No, quite a few students are probably thinking the same as me. That'll show them that I have what it takes to be even better heroes than the current students in the heroics department. This is a declaration of war, myself included." Katsuki just kept staring at everyone before walking through the crowd. "Oh, Bakugo, you can't leave it like this," Eiichiro said. "They're going to hate us." Katsuki replied, "It doesn't matter as long as you meet the time. Everything else doesn't matter." When the other students in 1A saw these simple but powerful words, they agreed and left. It's possible that the other students stepped back to make room for them to leave. Izuku turned around and saw a group of about the same size squishing in front of 1B. His thoughts turned to the 2 weeks that were left until the party. He knew they were all going to work hard on it, so he started to think about what he could do. Late at night, Rikai was meditating and drinking tea in her main dojo area when she heard someone coming up the stone stairs to her dojo. She didn't move at all, though. She just kept drinking her tea and waited for the person to show up. After a few seconds, the main door to the dojo opened, revealing Katsuki Bakugo. "Well, I must admit this is a surprise," said Rikai. "I would have thought Izuku or Itsuka would be the ones coming here." "Shut up, hag," said Katsuki. "There's only one thing I'm here for. The UA Sports Festival is coming soon. I want a rematch against Deku and I'm going to win. But to do that, I need to understand his base movements. So I have a damn favor to ask. While bowing to Rikai, Katsuki said, "Show me that fucking footwork Deku does. That ghost whatever steps. If I understand how that works, then I have a better chance of winning." While Katsuki stood there and waited, Rikai hummed a little as he thought about the request. "Fine," Rikai said, making Katsuki look up in surprise. "This will help the boy anyway. Don't want him to be too sure of himself." Rikai stood up, stretching her arms a bit before turning on Katsuki. "Alright brat, you better be paying attention now. I don't expect you to learn how to use it, and seeing how your primary source of movements is through explosions, I don't see why you would either. But maybe you can still learn something through that thick skull of yours." He smiled and pulled out a notepad and pencil. He had to make like Deku and figure out what the hell was going on if he wanted to win. In case he wanted to stay the night, he even brought a sleeping bag that he had just bought. Lucky for him, he saw his homeroom teacher buying the same sleeping bag he did. After a while self-training was going full speed for everyone. As Izuku thought about where he came from while training at Dagobah Beach, he reached new heights. To the place where his life began. He used the home gym set that All Might had bought for them almost every day. Inko decided to go to the local gym with Mitsuki to keep working out on her own. At this point, he was more interested in making his muscles last longer than in getting stronger. He learned at USJ that Izuku's ability to stop blunt damage wasn't enough to use one for all at full power, even though Izuku's body was made of rubber. So that he could use it without hurting himself, he had to make its limits stronger. Someone new would stand for peace, and he had to show the world that he was that person. He didn't know, though, that 4 girls were meeting with him as the main topic of their very important talk. 4 girls sat in a circle on Momo's big bed in her bedroom at the manor of Momo's house. There was Momo, Ochako, who was living with her at the time, Itsuka, and Tsuyu as a surprise guest. It all began when Itsuka asked Momo and Ochako to get together to talk about something. Because they were girls. The 2 girls knew what Itsuka wanted to talk about and agreed to meet at Momo's house. What caught them off guard was when Tsuyu walked in out of the blue and asked if she could join them. She also said she knew what they were going to talk about and thought she should be a part of it. They didn't really have a choice but to say no, which is why they were all at Momo's house. With a sigh, Momo brought the other 3 back to the present moment. "Let's start this meeting. I think we all know what this is about. About Izuku Midoriya. A boy in class 1A with curly green hair." Each of them agreed and nodded, though some of them were a little scared of what was about to happen. "It's painfully obvious to each other that we have a crush on the dense but kind boy," said Momo. "Each one of us fell for him. But he is only one while we are 4. He can only choose one of us, ideally." Even though everyone else nodded in agreement, Tsuyu had an idea. Shared something, but she put it away for now. "So why don't we just start off how each one of us fell in love with him?" Momo said. "I'll start off. I fell for him because of how kind he is to me. I'm the princess of the Yayorozu, rich, and unfortunately, my puberty hit me earlier than others." Momo's chest was the only part of her body that the other 3 girls could see. She had the largest bust of all of them, at least 2 cup sizes bigger than anyone else. Add the fact what my quirk was, I didn't have too many friends. I went to a private school where it was a rather cutthroat school. People were using others to push themselves into more prestigious situations. Many tried to befriend me, only interested in what I could make for them, for my body, or for my connection to others through my parents. Those who I could deem as acquaintances, at most all pushed away from me when I got the recommendation to UA. Momo then rolled up, playing with her toes before going on. "I took the exit exam out of my school early because I didn't want to deal with all the drama. I came here to do some more exploring so I could get used to the area. It was that day that I went to see Dagobah Beach that I met trouble, and then Izuku, who helped me out of the situation. He was perhaps the first boy I met who didn't want me for my quirk, body, or money. He saw me as me, getting to know me on a personal basis. It wasn't long after that that I fell for him." After hearing Momo's confession, Itsuka chose to go next. "Mine's not as romantic as Momo. But I guess it started when we first met each other at Rekai's dojo. He was just a kid like me that had gotten bullied a lot. It riles me up that someone would hurt him just because his quirk didn't show up at 4 like others." Momo asked, "Wait, his quirk didn't show up at 4? That's what he and his mom said, Itsuka agreed. Suyu frowned and said, Hiro, that must have been hard. She knew what it was like to be picked on. Because she looked like a frog, she was often teased. It didn't help that Bakugo, who was his first friend, also turned out to be his first bully, Itsuka said. Her hands grew and shrunk as they grew angry. The first time I saw him, he was so timid and scared. It seemed like for the longest time, he had nobody but his mother. His father was out of the picture as soon as Izuku was declared quirkless. I don't know what happened to him, but I don't care. At first, even I had my doubts that Izuku would be a hero, Itsuka said. But inside that nervous body was a courageous spirit that wouldn't give up. All he needed was someone to help bring it out. And once it came out thanks to Rakai, he faced his problems head-on with a smile on his face. I guess that spirit attracted me to him. To face each problem without fear. When I moved, I was crushed that I would be leaving my friends, especially Izuku. But Izuku didn't give up, and we managed to talk to each other through our computers, always keeping our bond strong. Izuku always looks out to help others, not caring about his own body, as we saw at USJ. The lack of physical contact just made me miss him more until I realized that I had fallen for him. That's so sweet that it's a childhood love story, Ochako gushed. Mama asked, well, we told you ours. What about you two? Ehehe, mine's nowhere as close to yours, Ochako blushed, raising both her hands to her head, combed through her hair. I met Deku at the entrance exam to UA. We hit it off pretty well as friends, and went to the same testing site. I thought his name was Deku, which to then I thought it was derived off of Dekiru, meaning you can do it. Despite that embarrassment, Deku let me call him that since he didn't mind the name, and even told me he liked it when I said it. When the test started, Deku pushed me gently to remind me the testing had started. Ochako took a deep breath before going on. I admired how cool he was when he took out those faux villains. Then, I fell for him when he showed his courage, his heroic, self-sacrificing spirit. We were all warned about the zero-pointer and how it would dock 75% of our current points. When it showed up, everyone ran for away, taking care only for themselves. I saw people pushing others to get away. I myself had some rubble that fell onto me and pinned me down. Other examinees just ignored me, in favor of keeping their points or just plain panicking. Izuku, however, saw me and rescued me before the zero-pointer could get me. I wasn't the only one to be helped, but the others that were helped just kept running. It came to a point where the damn skinhead was crying for help when Izuku decided to fight. He threw away his points to save an ungrateful person, but he didn't care. H did what he thought was right, to save others from danger, at risk of his own points or body. I tried to stop him, but he was already dashing forward. I never knew just how big Izuku's back seemed, though. It was so comforting, so protective. Right after destroying the one-pointer, he was still worried about everybody else, not caring about his own situation. Just like at USJ. I keep telling myself to forget about it and focus on being a hero so as to be able to give my parents an easy life, but it's not easy. I can't help but feel this way. It's like a prince rescuing the damsel in distress, Momo said. That's just as romantic, if not more than ours, Ochako. Then the three looked at the last person who still hadn't said her piece. Kiro, it's embarrassing, but I guess it's like Ochako-chan's situation, Suyu said with a smile. I first met him a month before the entrance exams. I was taking my siblings to a museum and met him as we were crossing the streets. Then a truck came flying towards us. I was ready to jump out of the way with my siblings and take Izuku with me, but he punched the truck stone cold. I admit, I thought that was hot, and then he helped capture a villain. He complimented me as he noticed I was already ready to take him to safety. It doesn't help he's pretty handsome. When Suyu showed them a picture of her siblings, the three of them blushed and cooed. They then listened with rapt attention as Suyu continued. I wasn't really surprised to see him again at UA because I thought he'd be a shoo-in. I admit I was more curious and interested in him as a friend, especially since I saw all three of you with him already. Then I fell hard for him again back at USJ. The bad guy with hands all over his body has some kind of disintegration quirk that could easily kill someone if he touched them. I don't know how it works, but I almost died 3 times by. Suyu shivered at that memory before forming a ball and embracing her legs. The villain had placed his hands on me, but his quirk didn't activate thanks to Aizawa-sensei deactivating it while Kon-sensei forced him away. I tried escaping with Kyoka-chan and the others, but I didn't notice a portal opening in front of me. I was too busy trying to get away when I fell through it and almost got caught again by the Shigaraki. They say when you're about to die, your life flashes in front of your eyes, to which I think it's true. I was thinking about my family, and how my younger brother would have to be the one taking care of the house. Based on that thought, my mind went to Izuku. Then he showed up. Tsuyu couldn't help but laugh, though her eyes were cloudy. Izuku shouted at Shigaraki to get away from me and tried to punch him. I'm not sure what happened, as my eyes were close, but the force of impact blew me away from him. When I opened them, I saw that black monster had blocked Izuku's attack and grabbed him by his wrists, trying to crush it as he did to Aizawa-sensei's arm. I tried to help, but Shigaraki almost got me once more. Then I heard his voice once more. Tsuyu closed her eyes as a tear came out. He shouted, "I said to take your damn hands off her." He then proceeded to kick him right in the face despite being caught. Though I think of it now, being rubber meant he probably didn't get hurt, but I thought that his wrists had been crushed so painfully that he couldn't scream. Izuku, after kicking Shigaraki away, threw the black creature into the landslide zone area. He looked so hot when he did so. Then he went to challenge the creature again, getting a punch to the face. I thought for sure he died, and regret pierced my heart. I was ecstatic to hear his voice right after though. I didn't know it before, but I know for sure that it was at that point that I fell for him. Just like Ochako-chan, I fell for his noble self-sacrificing spirit. I don't know if it'll last, but considering Ochako-chan still has the same feelings for more than a few months, I would suppose it would be the same with me. The four girls were all quiet after that because they didn't know what to say. Because of who he was, they all fell in love with Izuku. He didn't try to be a playboy or a Casanova. Instead, his love and kindness made them all fall in love with him. Then what should we do? Ochako asked. For now, nothing, said Momo, getting a lot of startled and confused eyes. Right now, we should be training for the UA Sports Festival. We can't afford to be distracted, nor should we distract Izuku with this. This is one of the most important events in our lives, and we can't let drama get in the way of that. That's reasonable, said Itsuka. In that case, should we form a pact to keep silent about this until after the sports festival? Tsuyu said, Hiro, that's fine with me. Ochako asked with her fingers together in a shy way, then what about after? After. I guess we'll have to talk about it again, said Momo. Honestly, I did not envision to be having this sort of conversation with friends. I don't know what to do after. Seriously, Itsuka agreed. Everyone looked at Tsuyu and said, then why don't we all confess afterward, Hiro? There's no way we can keep this a secret for so long. Plus, someone might try to take him away in the future. When the other girls thought about an unknown girl taking Izuku away from them, they clenched their fists together. So we confess after the event, and let Izuku decide who he wants to date. Whomever he doesn't choose, we step back gracefully and be friends. No sabotaging the relationship, no acting on jealous emotions, said Tsuyu. Itsuka thought, that sounds fair. He might not even pick any of us though. I doubt that, said Momo. If anything, you may have the biggest advantage over us, but don't think that'll hold over for long. Yes, Ochako agreed. Then it's agreed, Itsuka said, putting her hand in the middle. Let's focus on the sports festival and then confess when the time is right. The deal was sealed when the other three girls agreed and put their hands in the middle. Everyone kept working out hard for the upcoming sports festival. Since the UA's grounds were so big, each student made their own schedule. They made up their own scenarios of what could happen, because they knew it would be a surprise. They rarely trained together, because even though they were friends or classmates, they were all competitors who wanted to win. The big day was coming up soon. Today was a big day. Today was the UA's sports festival, which had pretty much taken the place of the Olympics in Japan as the main way for people to have fun. And a great way for UA to get a lot of money. Stands on campus had to pay the UA for renting it out. Some of the toys or masks they sold there had to do with the US was given a small share of the sales. They did have 3 big stadiums, one for each grade. It cost a lot of money to make sure the stadiums were clean, fully functional, etc. I did get a discount on a few things. In the past, The third years got the most people because it was their last chance, but this time, the seats for the first years were full. A lot of people wanted to see the students who had already fought their first bad guys. Another thing is that the son of Endeavor, Japan's second most popular hero, was there. He grumbled, "Man, I wanted to do some scouting," as he walked around the booths with Mount Lady and Death Arms. "We didn't really have a choice," Death Arms said. "We're needed for safety." One of the takoyaki stand's owners gave Mount Lady some food for free because she was so nice to them. Death Arms asked, "Do you think that kid is here?" Kamui Woods smiled, but it was hard to tell if he was smiling or not because of his mask. "Definitely," he said. "I'm definitely sending an offer to him." Death Arms thought, we never really got his name. At this point, Kamui Woods stopped for a second and grimaced. "HMPH, you mean the kid with the green hair, right?" Mount Lady huffed. She didn't like Izuku as much as the other two because what he did almost made her debut as a hero less important. She really worked hard to become a hero. She might not have gone to a school like UA because she was turned down by several schools because of her quirk and the school's fear of causing harm to other students. She ended up going to a school in the country with lots of farm animals and buildings that were easy to rebuild. Others told her she shouldn't become a hero and should instead stay in farming because it would be easier for her to move things to and from the farm. They even tried to set her up with some farmhands as potential husbands, but she didn't listen. That's why she didn't feel bad about taking credit or fame from other heroes. This was something she had to work on and keep going. Death Arms and Kamui Woods both said, "Yes, we are," rolling their eyes at Mount Lady's mood toward the kid. The students were all waiting in the stadium for first years in the rest area for Class 1A. They were all nervous and excited. "Man, I really wanted to wear my costume," Mina whined as she laid down. Mashirao shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's not fair. Not everyone gets to have their own custom-designed hero costume, some of which make the most of our quirk." "I know, but still," Mina complained. Being tense, Sato asked, "Wonder what the first round's going to be?" They both calmly replied, "No matter what comes, we have to deal with it." Shoji nodded in agreement. When the door opened, Momo and Izuku walked in, telling everyone that they would be coming in soon. Izuku asked to keep the straw hat for some reason he didn't even know. Once the hat was checked to make sure there was nothing inside that could help him cheat, the petition was sent and approved. While everyone else started getting ready for the game, Shoto went up to Izuku. Shoto told Izuku and Katsuki, "Midoriya," which made a lot of the other students look at them. "I think it's safe to say, looking at this objectively, that we're the two strongest people in this room right now. No, you may be stronger than me." This made Katsuki angry, and other people who were listening winced, but they couldn't say anything because it was kind of true. Izuku looked at Shoto with a raised eyebrow and asked, "Where is this going?" Shoto kept going, "So, All Might has his eyes on you, doesn't he?" This time, Izuku couldn't keep a surprised face from showing. He didn't know that Shoto had seen that he was connected to All Might. "That's not my business," Shoto said next, "but, I'm going to beat you." People in the class were shocked when the class hermit said something so bold. His nickname as a hermit came from the fact that he rarely talked to anyone in class after school. He chose to go home alone, eat lunch alone, etc. It was clear, though, that he was strong. What about Izuku himself? He said, "I'd like to see you try, but don't forget about everybody else. We're all here to prove ourselves to the world." Every student, from our class, to all the other classes like the general education course students, are aiming for the top with all their might. As am I. If you're not careful, you could trip. Plus, objectively speaking, we're not the only strong ones here. Everybody else has the same chance. The other students nodded their heads when they heard Izuku's words, but Shoto just raised an eyebrow and then turned away. They soon began to walk toward the center arena, where they would show everyone who they were. "Thanks for getting us these seats," she thanked Inko as she sat down in one of the best seats. Even though they weren't in the front row, Inko wouldn't have to strain to see the people in the middle of the stage. Plus, they would have some extra space between their legs compared to people sitting in the busier areas. "Yay, it's fucking nice to be able to see the action without other people bumping into you and to chow down on some food," said Mitsuki. Masaru said, "She also means thank you." "Not at all," Toshinori, in his free form, said. A friend of mine at UA gave me these seats months ago, telling me I could invite a few others. I originally hadn't planned to come when I remembered young Midoriya was going to be in it. Hatsune Mikisuke laughed. Thank fucking God for connections, as Masaru desperately tried to keep his wife from talking. I can see where young Bakugo got his mouth, Toshinori said through his sweat. Toshinori and Inko were in front, and Masaru and Mitsuki were right behind them. Everything was planned out. Honey, I don't see why we can't just sit in the front with them. There are 4 seats with enough room for food and elbow room, said Masaru. Shush, said Mitsuki back. While I appreciate these seats, I'm still suspicious of this Toshinori Yagi character. I can see he's not what he seems. Getting these tickets. You know how expensive it is to get this sort of VIP seats. Well, he said he got them from his friend as a favor, Masaru thought. Yay, but I doubt friends give him this sort of seat that easily, replied Mitsuki. And then there's that gym set at Inko's home. It's a state-of-the-art sort of gym set that's expensive as hell. One that even with your job along with my part-time modeling gig with Inko every now and then would put a fat dent into our bank. And he just gives it away as a present. Masaru said in a weak voice, maybe he's just rich. Yay, but we have no idea what his job is, said Mitsuki. He somehow carefully avoids it with some well-timed zings that both Inko and I don't even notice he's changed the subject. I'm making sure Inko doesn't end up dating some conman or Yakuza. Haven't the Yakuza been systematically dismantled already? Thought Masaru, and maybe he inherited a fortune? You know what I mean, Mitsuki said. Anyways, we're sitting here to make sure Yagi doesn't do something that'll make Inko uncomfortable. And I sure as hell can't do that efficiently if we're sitting next to them. Inko is smoking hot for her age, like me. It's bad enough she gets hounded by people every now and then. I don't want her to fall for someone just to have her heart broken. It was bad enough with Hisashi. It was impossible for Masaru not to agree with the last sentence. Since Masaru was a kind person, he wanted to punch Hisashi several times for his choice, but Inko was still upset about the divorce. Mitsuki smiled as she put her head on his shoulders and said, plus, I can cuddle with you while still keeping an eye on her. A loud cheer went up from the crowds as President Mike yelled, hey, pay attention, audience, swarm, mass media. This year's high school rodeo of adolescence that you all love, the UA Sports Festival, is about to begin. Everyone, are you ready? Why did I agree to do this? Shota asked as he sat down next to Present Mike. As if on cue, the students started coming in through the 11 doors that had been set aside for them. And here they are, and of course, you miscreants all came to see them specifically, didn't you? The miraculous new stars who overcame a mass villain attack with hearts and wills of steel. And in one case, quite literally, Hero Course, Class 1A and 1B. When the 2 classes were shown, the crowd went wild with cheers. Next up, General Studies Course, Class C, D, and E. Not to mention we have a special student in Class C that was aided in repelling the villainous attacks. Support Course, Class F, G, and H, Business Course, Class 1, J, and K. All the first-year students have now arrived. They got some applause, but not as much as the students in the Hero Course did. They were still well received, though. Someone in the general course said something about how unfair it was and how they were only there to make the student in the Hero Course look better. And now, for the player's pledge, yelled a woman, and there was the sound of a whip snapping in the air. All eyes turned to the voice source and saw that Midnight, the hot and beautiful R-rated hero, was the chief umpire for the first-year students. A lot of the female students and almost all of the male students turned pink when they saw Midnight in her superhero costume, which showed off her curves. Some people asked if it was okay for an 18-plus heroine to be here since everyone else was under 18. Everyone calmed down when Midnight yelled, enough, quiet down. Representing the students will be Katsuki Bakugo of 1A. Ochako whispered, him? As Katsuki walked toward the stage. Deku, didn't you get first place on the entrance exam? I did, but I was so busy with training, schoolwork, and duties as the class vice representative that I really didn't have time to think of a speech. The teachers told me not to worry about it as they would be passing it to the next person in line, said Izuku. As Momo's vice representative, he had to go to meetings with her and talk to the teachers about a wide range of topics, such as lesson plans, among other things. Because of all of that and his own training, It was decided that the next person in line would do the player's pledge. Izuku didn't mind. Though, he did ask Tenya, "Wasn't you in second place? Why aren't you up there?" Tenya said, "I do not believe I deserve such a placing. I did my own point calculation if I hadn't gone with Uraraka-san, and I believe I would have placed 7th. So I refused." Which left Bakugo. Momo said, "This is not going to be a pretty sight." Before he spoke, Bakugo stood up on the stage and stared out into the crowd. "I vow that I'll be number 1. That made most of the students erupt right away, and the audience was stunned by the student representative's audacity. There was silence in the stadium, but a laugh and a "That's my boy" could be heard. Tenya yelled, "Why would you say something so shameful?" and waved his arms in a chopping motion. But Bakugo didn't care about any of them. He grabbed the mic and said, "Those who don't have that resolve, you might as well just quit." That made the students quiet down right away. "I'm here to show the world who's the best, and you'll all be my stepping stones to the top. But if you don't even have the will to aim for the best, then don't even bother trying. You'll just get in the way." After putting the mic back on its stand, Bakugo walked back down to Class 1A. Izuku was aware of what Bakugo had done. He told them all he was at war with them, and that was enough to get their attention. He was letting them know he was there. Like All Might told him to do. He glared at Izuku as he walked by. Izuku knew what that look meant. He was going up against him. He was very good at putting everyone in 1A in harm's way, though. "Let's start the first game right away," Midnight yelled as a projection of a slot machine quickly spun behind her. The first game is what you'd call a qualifier. Every year, many end up in tears. Now, for the fateful first game, it'll be this. The slot stopped so that they could all see the words, "Obstacle Course," written out. "It's a race between all 11 classes," said Midnight. "It'll be a 4 kilometers course that'll take you around this stadium. Our school's selling point is freedom." Then Midnight said, "As long as you stay on course, it doesn't matter what you do, anything is possible." "I'd like to add that you have to go around the 4 kilometers course," said Shota. "That means no going out and then back into the finish. Even if they're at the same location, you must run the full course in order to win." Present Mike said, "Ah, good catch." Midnight smiled and pointed to the red tunnel exit. "Now then, everyone, take your place." As soon as everyone was in place, the heroes in the class noticed that they and Shinso had been put in the back of the crowd. But it didn't matter to them. They'd get through this. Izuku turned around and saw Itsuka with Momo and Ochako. She waved at him and then quickly turned her attention back to the gate. His words came back to Izuku in his mind, "All Might. I want you to tell the world that I am here. I'll do it for sure. There have already been shots, but now it's my turn." He quickly looked around at his classmates and saw that they all had the same determined look on their faces. To do well and try to get to number 1. While it was hard to read Toru's face, everyone else did. Izuku thought she had the same expression, though. "It's not just All Might. I got this far with the help of Rakai, my mom, and my friends. Now is the time to show everyone who you are, so keep an eye on me." As the last light on the red tunnel went out, Midnight yelled, "Start." When the starter's whistle went off, most of the students rushed forward. Some, mostly from the business course classes, chose to go to the side and not even bother to run in the race. Present Mike asked Shota, "Okay, here's the play-by-play. Are you ready to do the commentary, mummy man?" Though Shota complained, "You're the one who forced me here in the first place," Present Mike didn't pay attention. Present Mike asked, "Let's get going. What should we stress in the beginning?" "This part right now," Shota said, looking down at the starting line. As the students in the race tried to push their way through the narrow tunnel, rows of complaints came from them. It looked like it was done on purpose to test all of them. A lot of students were still stuck together, so the exit only let out a few at a time. Due to his short height, Mineta had it pretty bad because other people's waists would bump into him. If the people doing it were hot girls in skirts, he wouldn't have been so upset. While still in the back, Izuku didn't charge in to push forward. Instead, he chose to go another way. He put out both arms and grabbed a different part of the doorway. He made sure he had a firm grip on each one and then leaned back as far as he could. Blow up Sputnik along with everyone else, Izuku shot himself like a rocket into the tunnel and out the exit. Even though the tunnel was short, Izuku was able to fit through it. As soon as he came out of the tunnel, the temperature dropped sharply because ice covered the exit and a wind of ice made even more frost. The students, who were stuck in the frost, didn't even notice the Shoto running by as they whined about being too cold to move. Shoto rushed forward and said, "Sorry, but I need to get going." When he saw Izuku land in front of him, his eyes got very narrow. Shoto sent out another wave of ice, but Izuku jumped to avoid it and then set his sights on running. After that, Shoto heard yells and a few explosions coming from behind him. He took this chance to look back and saw that most of Class 1A and 1B were getting away with not getting hurt when he tried to freeze the competition. Hitoshi had also made it out alive, being carried by a group of students. Some from the other classes also got away, but he didn't pay any attention to them. More got away than I thought they would, Shoto thought to himself while Bakugo yelled at him and Izuku. Izuku was running with a smile on his face when all of a sudden he stopped. When Shoto saw this, he chose to be safe than sorry. He found out why Izuku had stopped as he slowed down. Targets found. Lot. When they looked up, some of the fake bad guys from the entrance exam with 0 points were staring down at them. As more of the giant 0-point fake bad guys and the other fake bad guys showed up, President Mike said, "Looks like our contestants have met their first obstacle. May I introduce you to the first barrier? Robo Inferno." She exclaimed, "Holy crap, aren't those the 0-pointers from the entrance exam?" Kaminari was surprised by how many there were. "Really? The hero course had to fight these?" yelled one student. "This is what they meant by obstacles," cried someone else. "There are way too many for any of us to get through," said someone else. While getting ready to fight the robot, Shoto thought, "So this is what the rest of my friends had to fight." Momo asked, "How do they get the money to build all this?" Izuku shot himself at one of them before Shoto could do anything. "The thing that was giving me so much trouble on the entrance exam got this," Izuku yelled as he threw his right arm back and let it coil as it stretched back. The fake bad guy in front of Izuku moved its arm to hit him, but Izuku kicked the hand away because he was already using one for all on his whole body at 100% for the moment. Izuku yelled, "Massachusetts smash," and threw his corkscrew punch right into the fake bad guy's body. The impact sent the 0-pointer flying backward into a few others, setting off a chain reaction of explosions that started with the first one. Mitsuki yelled, "Holy crap, Inko! When has Izuku been able to do that?" "He has been working out recently," said Inko, "but I had no idea he was that strong." Masaru said, "It seems to be some kind of secondary quirk. At first, he just stretched out his limbs. This time, though, there were arcs of electricity that seemed to wrap around his body, giving him power." This made the mothers look at him. It was hard for Toshinori to hide the fact that he was beginning to sweat. He thought, "He's sharp." And then she turned to Toshinori and asked, "Did you know this? You helped train him in the months before the entrance exam." Well yes," Toshinori said, pulling on his collar. "It was during the middle of training did we realize that part of his quirk. It was apparently hidden in conjunction with his rubber body. I would have thought he told you about it already." "HMPH, I'll be having words with him after this festival," Inko said loudly. Toshinori thought, "Oh boy, that's not good." He then looked back at the screen and said, "Still, that's one way to get everyone's attention." President Mike yelled, "Holy!" And just like that, Izuku Midoriya of 1A has sent several of the 0-pointers down with just one punch. He remembered that Izuku had hit the 0-pointer back at the entrance exam before, adding, "Though there seems to be a lot of anger built up in that punch. Remember, you told the examinees that they could possibly lose 75% of the score if they fought it," said Shota. "From what I remember, he was the only one to do so. He must have thought he lost his points when trying to save one of the examinees." The people watching were amazed by Izuku's strength. A lot of the professional heroes' attention was now shifting from Shoto to Izuku. Shoto growled to himself, "TCH, can't let him show me up," as frost started to come out of his right hand and leg. "Though I wish they had prepared something tougher since my shitty old man is watching." There were more 0-pointers trying to get back up when Shoto swiped his right arm up and fired another icy blast. Several of them were frozen. After that, he ran forward to catch up to Izuku, who had already begun running when he landed. He stopped them. Between the legs, we can get through now. As the frozen robots started to shake, Shoto said in a jokey voice, I wouldn't. I frozen them while they were in dangerous positions. They're going to fall down. The frozen robots did fall, sending shockwaves through the air as they did so. As the crowd's attention returned to Shoto, Present Mike said, Todoroki Shoto of 1A elegantly forges ahead while blocking the other contestants. Amazing. He's hot on Midoriya's trail now. Even though he's so cold, you know, that's almost unfair. Shota said, his actions were sound and logical, as he continued to watch Shoto skate to catch up to Izuku. Typical of someone who got in through recommendations, yelled Present Mike, making Shota mad. He's never fought them, but those 0-point fake bad guys couldn't stop him with his elite moves. I'm going to let you two beat me like hell, Bakugo yelled as he blasted his way forward. One of the 0-pointers that was still working tried to hit Bakugo, but he was able to move out of the way. As he walked by the head, he saw that under all that plating, there was a clear space where the wiring was, probably broken by the ice. He aimed a strong blast right at it with a smile. As Bakugo had thought, the blast was enough to kill the fake bad guy. Now no one can say I didn't take out a 0-pointer, Bakugo said with a smirk as he moved forward, moving faster as more sweat built up on his brow. It wasn't just 1A's monster trio that had no trouble getting through. The other people in the heroics class sped through the first problem like it wasn't there. One of UA's teachers, Snipe, said, as expected, 1A and 1B are the fastest to get through the obstacles. The other students aren't bad either, especially those that want to get into the hero course, said 13, but Class 1A and 1B won't stand idle in their path, said Shota from his stand. Both classes have experienced firsthand the world that awaits them during USJ. They've come in contact to true fear, dealt with it, and pulled through. They're using their new experience to drown out their hesitation. As the students sailed through the obstacles, the audience watched on screens that were being fed live video from different robots with cameras. Kirishima yelled, "Ha!" as he punched one of the small fake bad guys. Then he turned around and saw Tetsu doing the same thing. He ran forward again when he heard horns going off. He looked back one more time before yelling in shock and diving to the side. The reason he did that? Momo made an electric motorcycle and was riding it around right now. As she sat there, Ochako used her oddity to make the motorcycle lighter. In the sidecar, Itsuka was sitting with some rocks she had picked up. Because the engine had a lot of power, the load was lighter, and Itsuka shot for them. They quickly cleared the area. To put it simply, they were moving very quickly. Mineta yelled, "Here's my chance," as he tried to catch himself on the motorcycle, preferably on Momo's chest, so she couldn't get off. Since this was completely legal, he would love nothing more than to watch those magical orbs move as she carried him to the finish line. That plan fell through when Itsuka threw rocks at Mineta, making her hands a little bigger to give her throws more power and sending him flying away. "Thank you," said Momo. I did not like the way he was staring and moving his fingers. Ituska smiled and held up her rocks again. "No problem," she said. I felt something was off too. Izuku was running when he looked back and saw Shoto and Katsuki following him quickly, then Momo, Ochako, and Itsuka on a bike. Thanks to his quirk, it looked like Tenya wasn't too far behind either. Putting that off for later, he looked ahead and quickly stomped his feet down to stop himself before he fell off a cliff. "Oi, was the first obstacle too easy? Then what about the second one?" shouted Present Mike. "If you fall, you're out. If you don't want to fall, then you have to crawl, it's the fall." In front of Izuku was what looked like an endless pit with platforms that were far apart enough that a normal person couldn't jump from one to the next. Each platform was linked by thin steel wires that didn't look like they could hold more than one person. As Izuku looked at the platforms, his eyes got narrow. He could try to hop to the next platform and keep going, but he wasn't sure if the platforms would be strong enough to handle the force of his landing. Besides blowing himself up like a balloon, the only way he could really soften it. But it would waste time to do it again. He also didn't believe that he would land perfectly in the middle of the small platforms. Izuku could try to skip the whole course by jumping over it, but there was a bend in the map here. In other words, he couldn't just jump straight up. Even less sure was he that he could land in the middle and then make the change to jump again. he might not be able to handle the launch from the platform he would jump off of. So, in his mind, he put the output of 1 for all down to just 20% while taking a few steps back. There was present Mike, who asked, "What is the leader doing? If he doesn't hurry, the others will catch up." Since Izuku was running toward the rope, he stepped right on top of the steel wire, and kept moving forward like a tightrope walker. And our first place leader continued to run as if he was on solid ground. "Wow, that's pretty impressive," said present Mike. "You have to have very good body balance to be able to run that fast," Shota said, also looking very impressed. He thought Izuku would have pushed through it, but that would have been too much. The platforms would not have been able to handle landings that were rough. Because he would need full control of his legs while running, Izuku chose to only use 20%. He was scared that if he went any higher, he would slip and fall off. Izuku was running on a different wire when he heard ice forming behind him. Izuku quickly jumped off the wire and reached out for another wire because he didn't want to take a chance on finding out why. He pulled his arm back and shot up to a platform after grabbing it. When he turned around to look back, he saw Shoto working hard on the rail he was on before. While running on another rail, Izuku yelled, "Dick, move." Shoto just smiled as he jumped off one and ran to another to grind down on it. Katsuki yelled, "Oi, shitty half and shitty Deku, don't think you'll have it easy," as he blasted over the pit and didn't even have to land. He didn't have to worry about the bend because he could change directions while flying, or his explosions would carry him over everything. Momo, Itsuka, and Ochako got off the motorcycle and agreed to split up the team while the rest of the pack stayed together. Momo built a pole to help her stay balanced as she crossed the wires. Itsuka swung down, making her hands bigger as she did so. She grabbed the wire with her bare hands and swung across like she was on the monkey bars, going much faster than Momo. Ochako was so weak that she could only take off as many clothes and as much weight as she could before she tried to crawl across, holding on tight to the wire with her hands and legs. Momo offered to make her another pole, but Ochako said no, she had to do some things by herself. The good news was that they had built up such a lead that Ochako was already more than halfway through when the next group of people arrived, minus Tenya. The next person to arrive was Tenya. He jumped on the nearest wire and started grinding it down right away, ignoring present Mike's comments about how stupid he looked. Back at the front, Shoto was the first person to jump off the obstacle at the same time. He had held up Izuku a few times, which caused the wires he was running on to freeze, forcing him to switch wires. But as soon as Izuku landed on solid ground, it didn't last long. He turned it up to 60% again and took off, this time after Shoto with Katsuki right behind him. Someone in the crowd said, "Damn, those three are really gunning it," which started a conversation. The guy in first has a really powerful quirk, but that's not all. His natural athletic ability and judgment are a cut above the others. Of course it is. That's Endeavor's son. Well, no wonder. He has the blood of the top hero, only second to All Might. What about the other two? That Straw Hat Kid punched out that large robot in one shot, not to mention he's just as athletic, considering he was freaking running on the wire without hesitation. Maybe a relative of the hero Tiger from the Wild Pussycats? They both have extendable limbs? Yay, but with that power, it was like watching freaking a mini All Might in action. Hey, you don't think the two somehow had a kid, do you? What the hell is wrong with your mind? Get it out of the damn gutter. You're having a damn nosebleed, damn it. Hee hee hee. Yowie low, smack, sorry folks, nothing to see here. What about the explosion dude? I don't know, so far all he's done is play catch up to the other two. But he's very versatile. Remember his vow? Takes a shit ton of guts to do that in front of everyone. And if you haven't noticed, he's been getting faster the longer this has gone. Whatever the case, there's certainly going to be a lot of fighting to get them as a sidekick. For now, the three of them were arguing over who would be in charge, ignoring present Mike's comments. All three of them stopped quickly, though, when they got to the third and last obstacle. And it looks like they've arrived at the final obstacle, said present Mike. Careful where you step, folks, for it's danger everywhere. Welcome to the minefield, straight out from the old Rambo movies. Originally, we were going to set it up for the players to be able to tell where the landmines are, but we thought it would be more fun if you couldn't tell. Test your luck and instincts. By the way, the landmines are set up so they're not lethal, but they're still flashy and powerful enough to pack a punch, maybe even piss your pants. Shota said in a low voice, that would depend on that person. If the crowd thought the three would carefully avoid the minefield, which would take longer and give those behind them more time to catch up, they were terribly wrong. After taking a few steps back, Izuku ran forward again and jumped over everything. To get around the mines, Bakugo shot himself forward in the air again. Shoto ran forward while making a straight line for himself. He didn't care that he was blocking the way for the contestants behind him. Present Mike said in a low voice, "Well, why don't you just take the fun out of everything?" when he saw the three being careful around the mines. "I told you all this might happen with such a course," said Shota. "But nobody wanted to listen to me. The only thing that was changed was making the mines more hidden." Shoto quickly called up ice columns to bring Izuku and Katsuki back to the ground. Izuku turned around and held his hand up to block the ice pillar that was coming at him, while Katsuki dodged the attack with his blasts. His other fingers were pointing out, and his middle finger was bent under his thumb. With a flick of his finger and one for all at 80%, he fired a smash at the ice pillar, destroying it right away. Shoto growled as he kept running forward, "Damn it, I'll just have to mess up his landing then." He thought about attacking with his left side, but he pushed those thoughts away. He could win this festival with just the power of his mother on his right side. Izuku was about to land when Shoto made a patch of ice right where Izuku's shoes touched the ground. This made Izuku slip for a second. Before Shoto could try to freeze Izuku in place, though, he quickly got up and ran down the road. Shoto was angry about failing, so he focused on moving faster. Katsuki was able to catch up and start attacking Izuku, though, thanks to the slip. "Don't you fucking dare get ahead of me, Deku!" Katsuki yelled as he started to bombard Izuku with explosions, focusing more on the fire or burn than the force of the impact to slow him down. Izuku steered clear of them while lowering the output of one for all to 40% and then swiped at Katsuki. Katsuki instinctively avoided the swipes and threw more bombs at them. They got into a fight as they raced to the finish line, with Shoto right behind them. Shuto was able to slowly get closer to them while they were fighting, waiting for the right time to attack. When Izuku slapped Katsuki's wrist to block her blast, Shoto hit. All of a sudden, a huge glacier popped up and covered the two of them. Shoto walked by the two frozen bodies and said, "Sorry, but I need to prove a point. I'll unfreeze you after this race is over." "Ooh," and Shoto freezes his fellow contestants. "Let's hope they'll chill out later," said Present Mike. "Smart tactic," said Shoto. "Striking while they're distracted with each other. The two leaders may have just lost their chance of going to the next round if they don't escape out of the ice block." Mitsuki started to yell, "Oh that mother fu." Masaru covered her mouth to hide what she was saying. But that didn't stop Mitsuki from going on a long, loud rant. "Izuku," Inko whispered quietly as she saw the frozen figure of Izuku. Toshinori told Izuku, "Don't worry, he'll be fine," but he couldn't help but look worried at Izuku. "Come on, Midoriya youth. This is not how you should end it." He thought this as he looked at the screen. He quickly turned his frown upside down when he saw that the glacier that was trapping Izuku and Katsuki was shaking very hard. Shoto was running and could finally see the stadium. He would be done with the first part of the festival in just a few minutes. All of a sudden, he heard a loud explosion coming from behind him. Shoto couldn't resist the urge to look back, and just in time, he saw the glacier he had built to trap Izuku and Katsuki break apart. Shoto widened his eyes and dashed as fast as he could, making ice blocks to slow down the other two. Shoto was almost inside the stadium when he heard the explosions and heard fast footsteps coming toward him. Along with one for all, Izuku was running forward at 80% output. Katsuki grabbed Izuku's shirt and set off explosions in front of him, breaking the ice blocks while Izuku ran. In Katsuki's words, he was ready to work with them for a short time to get the half and half jerk back for putting them in ice. Katsuki yelled at Shoto, "Asshole," as he set off another chain of explosions. "Don't fucking count me out yet." Shoto quickly called up ice to stop the explosion, but it made him move a little more slowly. Shoto couldn't do anything, so Izuku was able to run past him. Shoto raised his left hand toward the two people, as if he thought that a simple hand gesture would be enough to stop them. His right hand was still in front of him, having stopped the explosion with it. Shoto was shocked when flames buzzed around his left hand. he quickly squashed them. Katsuki yelled, "Every man for himself," as he jumped in front of Izuku and fired a blast at him to slow him down while he boosted himself. "You're right, each to his own," Izuku said with a grin as he dove under the rocket. He raised one for all to 100%, got ready to jump forward, and saw a straight line to the finish line. He took off like a bullet. Katsuki, who was trying to go faster and yelled a lot of swear words, was easily passed by him. Shoto took advantage of his quirk so much that it made him shiver, but he didn't care. Right next to Shoto's ear, Present Mike yelled into the mic, "Eraserhead, your class is amazing." "Hey, I heard that," Vlad yelled from the teacher's chairs. "Don't forget about my class." Mike didn't pay attention to him as he asked, "Just what are you teaching them?" Shota looked at the finish line and said, "I didn't do anything." They got each other fired up. Present Mike yelled, "UA Sports Festival first year," which made him look back at the finish line. Not listening, Shota yelled angrily, feeling insulted. As the crowd waited impatiently for the first contestant to return, Present Mike yelled, "Who would have predicted the events at the beginning or this conclusion? Right now, the first person to arrive back is." The crowd saw a blur with green hair and a straw hat go through the finish line. Izuku Midoriya comes crashing through to make a huge splash, literally. It was hard for Izuku to stop because he wasn't used to running at full speed, even for short periods of time. He left a trail of thrown-up dirt. The crowd didn't seem to mind, though, because they kept cheering for him. Back outside the stadium, Death Arms heard the announcement and went to see who it was. He was able to get the name because Present Mike was screaming into his microphone, making it very clear. The moment he saw who had won first place, his eyes got bigger and he smiled. "It looks like we were right," Death Arms said with a grin as he pushed Kamui Woods in the arms. "He just won first place." He looked up at the screen and thought, "Izuku Midoriya, huh?" He added, "Knew he'd be here. And now we have a name to send the offer to." "Man, it's been several months since we last saw him with that villain in the truck incident, right?" said Death Arms. "Looks like he's gotten even stronger if he got first place in this. He's even beaten Endeavor's kid, whom I've heard rumors is quite strong." "It's going to be a race to see who gets him," said Kamui Woods. "Even if he loses the finals, no doubt with his potential, there are going to be a lot of offers." Mount Lady didn't notice who won first place because she was busy posing for her hungry fans. "Oi, don't go off posing," Death Arms snapped, running to Mount Lady. "Pay attention to your damn patrol. You can pose during your off hours, not work hours, and especially not during the sports festival event. We're security for a reason." In the end, Death Arms pulled Mount Lady away. Later, she would learn that the boy she didn't like had won first place. Tamura was working on his computer in a small room by himself. On one screen, he was watching the sports festival, and on another, all that was shown was the words, "Sound only." "That straw hat brat," the leader yelled as he scratched his neck badly. All for One, who was listening to the radio show, did nothing but hum as he thought. "Izuku." Inko yelled with joy as tears came out of her eyes like a fountain. There, Mitsuki laughed as she held out some tissues for Inko to wipe away her tears. Toshinori smiled as he looked down at Izuku. Inko's tears had kept him from having to take a shower. Izuku took a moment to look around before he looked up at Toshinori and gave him a thumbs up. "Good job. You've definitely told everyone that you were here." Toshinori smiled and gave her a thumbs up while fighting the urge to change into his other self. "A message to everyone that you will be the next peace pillar. If you keep up this pace, you'll soon be taking over as the symbol of peace from me." In his heart, Toshinori saw Izuku as a true hero who helped keep others safe. But this sports festival would show that personality to be a bit of a problem, since it was a race to the top, beating classmates and friends along the way. Sadly, today's heroes relied a lot on being popular, so they had to want to be better than everyone else. One great example is Mount Lady, who would jump at the chance to become more popular if it came up. He was afraid that he didn't need to care, though. Toshinori's ears perked up when he heard Izuku's name coming from below, close to the arena floors. "So, what do you think? First of all, Midoriya's stock will climb really fast." "That's certainly true. His quirk seems really powerful. Those extendable limbs, that strength to punch those faux villains, and his speed. He'll definitely be in the top 10. No, at least top 3 for this sports festival. If you took on management of his agency, how would you market him? Any opinions? Appearance is average in terms of looks. Easy on the eyes, but nothing that makes him stand out that'll attract people to his appearance. I disagree, he has a strong and sturdy body for sure. Sure, his face isn't supermodel material, but that with that body, it'll surely attract a crowd. Well, the body is good and all, but does he have a sharp mind? Usually, people with brawn tend to be meatheads, just brute forcing their way through everything. He doesn't seem to be one, though. Remember the second obstacle? Instead of jumping to the next platform with just power, he chose to run on the wires instead. He must have decided that jumping to the platforms was too risky. Either he knows he doesn't have the control or he suspected the platforms could crumble upon impact. That shows he has a tactical mind behind that head of his. Alright, we can highlight those parts, but I'd prefer to have more materials about him to work it out. Maybe his grades or something. TCH, the business course. They never change, do they? Toshinori laughed, but he was secretly glad that the students were looking at how marketable his apprentice was, and so far they were finding him a good fit. The sports festival helped students show off their skills, but it was mostly for those who wanted to be heroes or show off their skills. Most of the students in the business course didn't want to be heroes, so when the race started, most of them either stepped aside or ran to the first course to support the sports festival. They then went back to the stadium to wait. Being a part of it didn't help them in any way, so this sports festival was just a break for them. Instead, they just used it to unwind, play business games, or sell things to make extra money. A lot of them were selling different kinds of food to people in the audience. However, the sports festival did help them learn more about the other students who wanted to be heroes so that they could decide if investing in one of them would be a good idea. The next people to come in were Katsuki and Shoto. They were both out of breath and panting. Shoto was looking at Izuku with a calm face, and Katsuki had his arms around him to keep them from shaking. Damn it. I fucked up and let go too soon. You should have known that Deku wouldn't be going as fast as possible. He's not a fool. Fuck. You lied to me, but I'll show you who's the best, Katsuki said to herself in her mind. Shoto kept quiet while he thought about what to do next. The rest of the students started to come in slowly but surely. Itsuka was the next one in, then Momo, Tenya, and finally Ochako. All of them had used Shoto's ice path, which he had left behind while chasing Izuku and Katsuki. But when the main group of students got to the minefield, there was a fight over who would take the path made of ice. While many could have fought over the ice path, they chose to make their own. Deku-kun. You were amazing, Ochako yelled as she hopped over, but there were dark circles under her eyes that showed she had been using her quirk too much. Congrats on first place. Yes, congratulations are in order, Momo said with a nod. As Itsuka gave Izuku a quick hug and smiled, I knew you could do it, it's just frustrating that I couldn't catch up sooner, though. Tenya said in a sad voice, to think I'd place so low with a quirk like mine. Thoughts? Hey, you still beat a lot of people, Izuku told Tenya. Tenya sighed and looked up. This should have been my specialty with my quirk, she said. I'll have to work harder next time. Izuku agreed and then thought to himself, I'm glad I was able to get out of that ice trap. I don't think Bakugo or Todoroki will do the same thing again. To see if I can keep this up, the next round will be a test. As they watched their classmates run past the finish line, they saw something rather funny. Mineta had planned to finish by clinging to Momo, but he ended up sticking to Sato instead, much to Sato's dismay because he doesn't like being stuck with women. As the last few students arrived, Midnight said, and the first game of the first year stage is over, now let's take a look at the results. Number 1. Izuku Midoriya. Number 2. Katsuki Bakugo. Number 3. Shoto Todoroki. 4th. Kendo by Itsuka. Top 5. Momo Yaoyorozu. 6th. Tenya Iida. 7th. Ochako Uraraka, and so on, all the way up to Yuga Aoyama, who was 42nd and holding his stomach in pain. It looked like everyone in the heroic department, even the Shinso with the reserved seat, had made it into the top 42 when Izuku looked at the board. Mei Hatsume from the support department was the only other student in the top 42. The top 42 will move on to the next round, Midnight said, ignoring the mostly General Ed's complaints. Students who didn't get through, it is unfortunate if you didn't make the cut, but don't worry. There will be a special event later on where anybody can showcase their skills to the audience that'll take place after the main event. As she finished her sentence, she licked her lips with joy, which made everyone watching her shiver with excitement. But now, the real show will begin. The press cavalry will be all over this event, so for those participating in it, look sharp. This is your next big chance to shine. Most of the students in the top 42 were excited about another chance to shine, but Yuga was especially excited. Midnight swung her whip back to the projection, and the slot went through quickly again. Now then, on to today's heart-pounding event. I already know what it is, but the suspense is so exciting. Now, what could it be? What should it be? And here it is. The slot landed on the words, Cavalry Battle, with the last sentence. Voice. Cavalry battle? I'm not so good at that. Suyu thought, that's not a one-time thing, so I wonder how that'll work. It was pretty clear to everyone why Mineta was so excited. Let me explain. Midnight said again, looking at the projection, which had changed to show 13 in present Might carrying All Might. Snipe was also in the projection, but All Might's body covered up his whole body. No one would have seen him if there wasn't a small brown dot that looked like his hat. Participants can form teams of 2 to 4 people as they wish. It's basically the same as a regular cavalry battle, but the one thing that's different is, based on the results of the last game, each person has been assigned a point value. A point-based system like the entrance exam. That's simple enough to understand, Sato thought. In other words, each team is worth a different amount of points depending on who's on the team, Ochako thought. Ah, I see. Mina exclaimed when she understood what was going on. Midnight hit the people talking with her wipes and said, "Don't say what I was going to say before I say it. Let me speak, or it's detention, though I don't mind if the boys want to come." Mineta almost got in trouble, but Kyoka put her earbuds in his ears to stop him. Anyways, before you all get carried away, the points are assigned based on your placement in the obstacle course, in increments of 5. So 42nd place will be 5 points, 41st 10 points, and so on. You can look up the board to see your own value. Izuku thought, that sounds easy enough. If my math is right, I should be worth, as he looked at his own name in first place, 210 points. But when he looked at his name, all he saw were question marks. Katsuki had 205 points, which was the right number for second place, so he checked it. However, there is a key exception to first place, said Midnight. Those at the top will suffer more. You'll hear this many times as you attend UA. This is what it, plus ultra, means. Izuku Midoriya, who placed first place in the qualifier, is worth 10 million points. As soon as she said that, the question marks next to his name changed to show what Midnight had said. Izuku had to rub his eyes and ears and blink a few times to be sure what he saw and heard wasn't a joke. He had to pinch himself before he could believe that he really did have a value of 10 million points next to his name. Izuku took a deep breath and looked around. Oh, that can't be good. His eyes were filled with greed and the desire to kill him, just as he had thought. It was easy for him to tell what they were all thinking. No matter where you were in the qualifier at the start, as long as you beat the winner, you would be at the top at the end. That's right, Midnight said. It's the survival of the fittest, with a chance of those at the bottom to overthrow the top. Not only did those looks make Izuku's heart race with fear and dread, but they also made him feel excited. As Japan's most famous hero, All Might had to deal with this. A target painted on his back, not just from bad guys but also from heroes who wanted to beat him. He carried this weight with him for all those years. What it costs to be number one. Toshinori smiled from the stands as he saw Izuku's face change a little. You get it quickly. Good luck out there. At the same time, he had to deal with Inko's talking and Mitsuki laughing so hard that Masaru had to hold her back. And Izuku couldn't help but laugh a little and smile with excitement when he saw this challenge. Katsuki was right when she said that people who aren't determined would only get in the way. Some of his competitors began to doubt their own ideas when they saw that grin and heard that laugh. Midnight began to talk about how to play the game. The race had 15 minutes, and each rider had to wear their original headband to get points. The points were worth the total value of their team. To get more points, teams would try to steal each other's headbands. If they did, they had to wear the stolen headbands from the neck up. It was also made clear that it would be harder to keep track of all the stolen headbands if you had a lot of them. Yet the most important rule was that, unlike the first human cavalry battle, a team wasn't out if their headband got stolen or their horse formation fell apart. They could instead stay in the game and try to steal the points back. Finally, quirks could be used as usual, but they couldn't use attacks that made people fall on purpose, or they would be kicked out of the game right away. That made Katsuki laugh out loud, and other people started to talk about what could happen. If everyone formed teams of 4, there would be at least 11 teams. There could even be as many as 21 teams of 2. Midnight said, "You have 15 minutes to put together your teams. Start." The competitors rushed to put together teams. Death Arms, Kamui Woods, and Mount Lady watched the event on TV in a break room area that was only for staff. Mount Lady, who had never been to UA, asked why the first spot was so high. As Death Arms smoked a cigarette, he said, "The UA Sports Festival is more about simulating the competition they'll face as heroes than seeing how ready they are to be heroes. It would have been better for him to sit in the front row to see the new heroes, but the seats were already full." "Huh? What are you talking about?" Mount Lady asked, confused because she didn't get what he was saying. Before continuing, Death Arms took a drag from his cigarette and let out a long exhale. In a world full of hero agencies, you have to kick people down to show how strong you are sometimes to make ends meet. The qualifier is a great example of this, with a few exceptions. Not everyone got to show off, especially if you placed higher than 42nd. As Mount Lady waved the smoke away, she coughed and begged Death Arms not to do that. "Doesn't it hurt your heart, though?" she asked. "I don't believe I could do that." "You little. Have you forgotten what you did to pay off your debt?" Kamui Woods growled, remembering the event from a year ago, when she made her debut. "I remember you doing it with great joy." Death Arms just sighed as he went on the other hand, even if you're competitors in business, there are times when you have to work together to get something done. It happens a lot, too. "Oh, the cavalry battle is a great way to practice for something like that." "Aha!" Mount Lady exclaimed with relief. "If you win, your teammates win, so you all move on to the next round. It makes the students think about how well they get along with their peers, taking into account their personalities and quirks as well as their point value. There is some giving and taking going on." Coordinating with your sidekick and joint quirk training with other agencies, Kamui Woods agreed. He thought about how deep the sports festival was and tried to drink some water, but it hit his mask. He had to take it off to drink the water. Death Arms, who had been in the group longer, said, "The kids are doing things that they will do all the time after they become pro heroes. The real reason for the UA, the point of the sports festival, is to let them feel what it's like to be a pro and give them time to get ready for the future. A nice bonus for them is that they keep a lot of people entertained and make a lot of money for their budget. A good heroic course costs a lot of money to run." "They've got it rough," Mount Lady sighed. Then she said with a mean smile, "But the Straw Hat Brat deserves to feel all that pressure now. Almost making my debut look bad. There won't be many people who want to work with him because everyone will be after him. He should only have one other teammate in the end. That must have been hard for him to lose his chance to shine and get more internship offers." Kamui Woods and Death Arms sighed as Mount Lady went on a short rant. They then cut her off and said, "I doubt he won't have any internship offers after how well he did in the qualifiers. He will definitely have 2 offers, at the very least." "Oh? Who would that be, then?" Mount Lady asked. "Yes," the two said with a wave. Death Arms said, "We know what he can do. Anyone else who doesn't? They must be blind, but that just gives us a better chance to catch him. He's sure to go far." Kamui Woods laughed as he looked at the screen and said, "I don't think we'll have to worry about him not passing. Look at his face." The other 2 people looked at the TV and saw Izuku's face zoomed in to show who had the 10 million point value. He was grinning and giving a small laugh. His face showed nothing but confidence and excitement. Kamui Woods said, "That's not someone who's scared. They're going to get kicked in the nuts by that person." Death Arms agreed and laughed. Mount Lady couldn't help but pout as her 2 co-workers gushed over the Izuku.
So that's it for today. I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.